Welcome to Manna from Heaven with your girl Sharon Gaines Lee. I am so happy you are here today as I continue this series with Karla Cruel. It is such an interesting discussion on Blacks working together with each other in the community and the stereotypes that need to be dismissed and admonished. I said in my opening broadcast that this interview is geared towards Black people, but honestly, it's meant for all people. So join in with me today and eat the manna. Chew on the manna, chew on the word, glean from it. Learn how we can all work together, grow together, and make our relationships with our community and our world a better place. So come on and eat. Come on and eat and join in with me. Come on, you can glean. There's a lot to glean here. Come on, come on.
United States as a whole, we need a cultural shift, a value system shift.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the ways that we get there is by embracing our racial cultural diversity.
Mm-hmm.
The Koreans who are Korean American, them bringing their cultural experiences into the conversation is going to help us change our value system.
Right.
Black Americans being able to speak from their place and not always fighting for we need better, but saying, I'm going to tell you how my point of view is better than what we're doing right now. Right.
Right.
Like what we can all agree, like let's take for it. I'm speaking in generalities, but let's say the COVID problem, right? So right now I just posted where the CDC is saying, hey, take the mask off. We don't care. You know, you get COVID, pass it on. We don't care. Right. And then the WHO is saying, listen, people are still dying from COVID every week. So be careful. And it's like, wait, how are
mixed messages?
Right. These two things don't go together. And the problem is they're trying to balance economic stability, all of this inflation and money, right, with public health. And in the US generally, historically, making money has always been a greater priority than human health, right? We always put that first. What if, since think about what we used to do, like your mother used to give me castor oil all the time,
right.
And cod liver oil, right, to make sure that I was okay. Native Americans using herbs, right? A lot of us weren't as sick with all the diseases that we have now, but we run a prescription. What if we embrace the Native American, the Native indigenous people's love of the earth and stop and started to cultivate the earth differently and said, I wonder if we can attack the diseases like COVID and people's health issues by helping people to eat differently. Right. So instead of saying, oh, forget about the masks, right? Say, you know what? We do need to balance economic stability. Can you, people from all these other cultures, can y'all come and tell us how you're dealing with stuff so that we can think through this differently? Right. That's all I'm saying is the diversity of voices has value. And you come up with better solutions with it. And we're not doing that. And so we keep perpetuating rich get richer, poor get poorer, race, us versus them, Black people, we think everybody's our enemy. Right. But that's because it's been perpetuated to us. Everybody is our enemy. When in fact that's not always true. So we need a new narrative. We need to change the culture and we need to push it. And that means for me, that means changing our conversation with one another.
Yes. I like something you said because it is the mindset that we have, but something you said earlier that made me think of something about, you said something about the Black culture being rich. And I think we are so rich that we don't know it in so many areas. I mean, I think if we change our mindsets, because once we get into an area, we sort of dominate it. Whether it's in sports, I think of the food culture, and I'm not saying that Italian food is not good, Chinese food is not good, but when you take a Black person to make one of those foods, it goes to a different dimension. I mean, one of the workers I had, my biggest contract in upstate Pennsylvania with the Rischini agency. I mean, I made a lot of money with him. And so, and he said, Sharon, it's just something about a Black woman cooking this food. He said that nobody else in Indiana could do. And he gave me a stipend to work for him all the time. Whether I was working, I was getting paid. He said,
Not,
and what it was, he was absolutely true. It was absolutely, because the food that he thought was so exceptional, and his guests thought was so exceptional, you would say, Sharon, this is good, but it would be more normal to you.
Yes, 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 yep.
But because I live in an area that was all one race primarily, I mean, when I came into that dynamics, I mean, it just shifted everything.
Yep.
And so I'm just saying, and so in that, we have to, I mean, we have to recognize how rich we are in so many areas. I mean, when I see people getting big butts now, they get butts. I mean, it looks so stupid to me. I mean, I think, but it was like, this is stuff that they tried to tell us something was wrong with us because we had it. Now people are paying for it. The lips, getting lip implants, the hair. Now, I mean, the whole thing, we tried to stay away from it to make ourselves feel like another culture, or feel like we were white. I'm going to say that. We would do those things, and you can see us slowly coming back into it a little bit. I want to be a part of changing that dynamic, that paradigm.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, think about the diversity that we do with our hair, right? And we're like, oh, I can't take care of my hair. But think about all the different types of hairstyles that a Black person can get when their hair, like when it's in its natural state, right?
Yeah.
But even then, okay, so I'm not a person, I don't do weaves, I don't do wigs, I don't do any of those. I never did, right? That's not my thing. But when I think about the creativity that has gone into that work, I watched my sister in a hair salon. This woman was partially bald. I think she had alopecia, right? And so she had like little bits of hair in different parts of her head. And my sister did a weave wig type thing on her head.
Tawanda is phenomenal.
She did so, but Tawanda kicked me out the hair salon because I need to show you my face. So I was sitting there looking, right? So, you know, everyone's talking. I'm sitting there looking. And I go, what are you going to do here? Like, that is amazing. That is award-winning. You just took a bald person and made them look like they had natural hair flowing down their back.
Yes,
I don't understand how this is possible. And she's like, Karla, don't do that. That's embarrassing. And I was like, no, it's beautiful, and people don't even value how amazing what you did was, you know. And I'm not saying that other cultures don't have, like in Japan, food was amazing for me. I love Japanese food, their natural food, but a lot of their foods are stolen from other cultures and they've added flavor to, right? Japanese people are known for tempura, but Japanese were like, oh yeah, we got that from Peru. Yeah, like we didn't originate that, right? They make their gyoza's from China, but the way that the Japanese people make it, it's just, you know, a little bit cooler, right? There's Chinese ramen, but there's also Japanese ramen, right? The thing is, and this is what I love about Black people, is that in our natural state, we got cool stuff just flowing out of us, right? But what makes me sad is that we don't recognize it. So we seek validation from white people, right? Or from particularly white people. We seek validation from them, right? So they don't let us in their golf club, so we go make a Black golf club. I'm like, well, why don't you just create a new sport and say, well, y'all can play our sport? You know what I mean? Like, why? If they have it, we have to have it. Why don't you just create something new? You can. You don't need to compare to them, because you inherently have something beautiful. I went to a play from a South African choir. I was overseas and I'm watching this play, and this woman, she was singing, but she was making this deep guttural sound that it sounded like a tuba, like someone was playing a tuba. And I was like, where are the instruments? And it was a line of women. I want to say it was about 10 women, this choir, and 3 of them were the instruments, but they were making deep bass instrumenty sound while other people were singing. And I said, my God, I understand why they hated on us so bad.
Yeah, right.
Because if I heard that, I would be like, God has come to earth. This is amazing. I need to figure out, because I'm scared, because it was so beautiful. And so I can imagine if you're the minority, you're worried about being irrelevant. Black people are intimidated, right?
Right.
But instead of I would like for us to realize how amazing we are, right?
Yes.
And that we don't need to seek the validation of others to know that we're amazing, right? And then I think once we get there, we'll be able to work with white people easy. Like when I go on job interviews, I no longer, this is what I mean. I know that let's say I'm looking for a job and I know I need a job. But when I go on the interview, I'm interviewing them to see if it's a good place for me to work as well. Will I feel comfortable? Yeah. Like, is this going to be a place that's going to pour into me as well? Like, I'm giving something out, but am I also going to be getting something in return besides just a little note on my resume that I can say I did this, right? Is it going to be an environment that is going to drain me or give me life? Because I know I'm inherently valuable. And so when I'm walking into that,
that's right. There you
I'm
go.
inherently valuable, right? And that's what I want for us as a people, to know that we're inherently valuable.
Yes.
So then when we're doing things, we're not seeking validation. I'm not be the first black person to do blah, 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 blah. You can call me that. And that's it. Like Michelle Nichols, for me, when I saw that she passed away, Lieutenant Aurora from Star Trek Next Generation.
Yeah, right.
I mean, Star Trek, the original. She, for me, has, like, from a distance, is someone that's inspirational to me because she just was who she was.
Yes.
And she was impacting places. She was going, but she wasn't like, I'm the first Black woman to do. She wasn't doing that. She was just, this is my gift. This is what I'm good at. I'm showing up. And if everyone else wants to recognize it as that, great. And then I'm going to capitalize on it, not for myself as an individual, but for my community. So she capitalized on being Lieutenant Aurora to help create more diversity in that. She didn't do it for herself. She opened doors for other people. That's how if I had last piece of message, if we're going to be capitalists, I want us to capitalize on a moment to benefit the community as a whole, not the person individually. That's what you can capitalize.
And that's important. I like what you're saying right there, because I have another story with this, with what you're saying. People would say, I heard people say years ago about Oprah. Excuse me. Let me take this down. How Oprah wasn't for the Black people. And I knew somebody who was inside, who was one of her producers. Excuse me. I knew somebody who was one of Oprah's producers. So from the inside, I knew that it wasn't the way that they saw it. And so when people saw that Oprah was, most of her, the people in her audience were white. When I went to the Oprah show, most of them, I mean, all the people behind the scenes that worked for Oprah were Black, mainly. Except the guy that I knew, he was white. But I mean, most of them were Black people. But this was the thing I'm getting to. And people would say those kind of statements, but Oprah utilized and capitalized on something because her money was coming from different ethnic groups. And so, her audience, that's where her money was. The producers and the big people she knew primarily were white. And so she fed them. She did what she had to do with them. But people recognized that when the Oprah show was over and all of those Black boys who walked down the aisle with candles from Morehouse, that their education was paid for, and their education was paid for, but they had to pay it up. And so that money was going back into the community, educating these Black boys and girls. Educating them. And so us being smart, instead of saying, no, I'm just going to go with one. She utilized the whole thing. And that's how we have to think. We have to think smart. We have to think smart and not just think one-sided, one dimension.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, having myopic. Yeah. I personally am, my belief system is, I'm not a capitalist, right? I know that I'm not, that's not my value system, but it is the culture of our society.
Right.
And it took me a while to figure out that one of the things I kept running up against with people was that, because that's not my value system, I couldn't get people to go along with things that I wanted to do because they were like, how we gonna make the maximum amount of money? Where I've evolved to is, okay, this is the culture. Got it. Capitalism is the culture. But can you capitalize in a way that benefits others instead of just yourself as an individual? If you're doing that, I'll step back and mind my business, right? And maybe you build 6 mansions for yourself, but you've also created affordable housing for 200 people. You know what, Karla, shut up, right? Because you made it more. It wasn't about making more resources for yourself, right, and taking away, but you're creating. I want to see more people pay it forward in such a way that it creates I see it as like a boulder coming down a hill, right? That it just keeps getting no, maybe a snowball that might start off like this, but as it rolls, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. That's what I want to see, people paying it forward to the point where I want to see, no, not necessarily see, it would be beautiful to hear generations from now that your grandchildren, your great grandchildren are like, oh, remember when they kept talking about like racism in America? Isn't it so funny that that's going like, I want to see a Star Trek world, right? And I think that we get there by paying it forward. Right.
Right. Karla, I'm going to tell you, this was an excellent broadcast for me. I am so glad you joined me. I mean, I really am. Are you going to come back?
Sure, whenever you
because
want.
I listened to your cruel. Tell me what it is. I want to say
cruel
you don't
thought.
say cruelism.
Oh, it's just cruel thoughts.
I listen to your cruel thoughts periodically, a lot more than periodically, and I love them. But this one really stood out to me, and it was like, I got to get you on here, and I'm so glad you accepted my offer and you came on right away. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much, little cuz.
All right. Thanks, Sharon.
I love you for coming in, and you know I'm going to call on you again. And
no
you know
problem.
I'm coming to Hawaii.
You're welcome.
Okay, I'm welcome.
It's a beautiful
thank you
place.
for joining me. And there's so much information. I know people are going to send me questions, but I will forward those questions to you, or I'll bring you back on so you can answer them if they're the same questions. But I know this is going to spark a lot in people because these are things we need to know. We need it to know. You know?
All right.
So I love you, Karla Cruel. Love you.
You too. Okay. Be well.
Bye-bye. Hello, Karla Cruel. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming back to answer some questions that people have sent in, and I thought you were the perfect person since I pulled from what you wrote on social media. And so and I wanted to start with negative racism, racial stereotypes, and their effects on our attitude towards African Americans. This is what we're addressing today. As human beings, we naturally evaluate everything that we come in contact with. We especially try to gain insight and direction from our evaluation on others. Would you say?
Yes.
Stereotypes are cognitive structures that contain the perceiver's knowledge, their belief, and their expectations about human groups. And there were stereotypes throughout history, Karla. You would know this. We had stereotypes about Jim Crow, Sambo, and Jemima Sapphire. That was a movie in the 1950s that depicted a Black woman as being bold and bossy and just aggressive. And so now we're addressing, and there are other stereotypes I just pulled from those, but now we're addressing Blacks against Blacks. And I want to just start with real quick, where do you think that started from? Before, just real brief, and then I'm going to ask you your questions. Where do you think that Black on Black stuff originated from?
So I think that's a complex or nuanced answer, actually, because I think part of it is something in us becomes tribal and wants to, even like when you think about Israel becoming a people, right? It was them versus the Egyptians, right? Okay, so there is a tribalness that happens with humanity, right? We want to be a part, and so I think that's some of the Black on Black is like, we was being sold by other Africans in Africa into slavery. You know what I'm saying? All right. So that's the one part. I think in the United States of America, because I think we have to distinguish the types of Black on Black issues that we have, right? So in the United States of America, the Black on Black issue clearly and easily comes from slavery, right?
Okay.
So one of the ways that you can control people, right? And this, you can actually expand this out to the larger issue of racism. But one way to control people is to give them like, if you want to I'm gonna bring this group together, and I want to be able to sort of manipulate how they are processing. I give them an enemy. I set them up for an enemy. I get them to focus on the enemy, and they never see what I'm doing, right? They're, people watch some of the sci-fi, blah, 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 blah. So like during slavery, if you put two people on a block and they're like, no, I want that one, but not that one, it's immediately separating, like, well, what, there's a piece, like looking at them like, what's that, so you start doing this comparison, right? And then you have the mistreatment that happened in, like I'm light skinned, right? So I'm yellow. And so you have the lighter ones being put inside of the house, the darker ones staying outside. And I watched the documentary, I think it's Louis Gates Jr., where he talks about Cuba, and he talks about them not having a color issue. And the United States of America went over there, created a light skin, dark skin paradigm that the lighter ones are better. So by doing that, again, you create this like black versus black, and then the stereotypes, the negative imagery in TV and movies have perpetuated generation after generation. Right.
And Karla, I found that not only in the black race, but other races have that light skin, dark skin thing going on. Like the Indians, I know one of my Indian daughters, they have it in their culture. The Asian, Chinese people do it in theirs, don't they?
Right. The caste system, right?
The caste system, yes, exactly.
We keep doing different forms of caste systems over and over again because we're functioning from hierarchy. And in my mind, you need that type of hierarchy out of fear that you'll lose power and control, right? Because otherwise, you can engage peacefully, as this being Christian, right? If you think of it sort of this from the perspective of the Garden of Eden, right? So we talk about Eve encouraging Adam to eat. He eats, she eats, they both fall, right? So, but wait, I just lost my train of thought.
And you know what, while you're train of thought, I thought of think about this, but I thought this is not new, anything new under the sun. You think of the Song of Solomon and how they address the black woman and her beauty and her shape and because she was being persecuted for her dark skin and for her shape. And so I don't think and I have to say that, just to add this little Christian spin on it, there's nothing new under the sun, and racism was in the Bible.
Right. Oh, definitely. I mean, they're warring against people constantly and taking land. Right. In the Old Testament, we forget about that. But what I was saying, I do remember. Thanks for taking that, Paul. So, the way that I visualize the way that God made man to function initially with the nature, with animals, is that we just engage. Like, we're all like, we're in need. It's an ecosystem. We're functioning, right? So then they eat of the fruit and God cuts them off, right? You're not going to be in the garden anymore. If you notice after that, like, you don't hear about a hierarchy until after that, right? And that is when Cain and Abel, he's like, wait a minute, I feel like I should be here. You should be down there, right? I think there's something embedded in how God designs things, that there's always equity and balance, like a perfect harmony of things. And the sign of sin, right, to me, is this separation and division. I'm above, you're below. I'm better, you're not. To even, I mean, think about the Bible, to take the message of Jesus Christ and use it as a means to say that people are inferior because of the color of their skin, right? Despite the many scriptures that would be opposite that. How can you twist that narrative except for your heart is so separated from God that you have whether people want to admit it themselves, it's idolatry and of themselves, right? They've elevated their own selves to a level that they think that they're equal with God, that they can change the rules, right? That they can, oh, I don't need that, but I'm going to hold on to this piece, and this works for me, right? So, I mean, isn't that exactly what cult leaders are? They're like taking the mainstream of a religion and be like, don't like that, keep this, photograph that, this is mine. You know, that's the sin of I think like racism, you know, classism, the isms, you are, I am this. All of it derives from separation from God, because it doesn't, like for Jesus, you know, you're Christian, you say that Jesus is the Son of God and the embodiment of his spirit here on earth, right? And he doesn't divide.
Right. That's right.
He's a model for non-division. Oh, you know, you without sin cast the first stone, right? Like, you know, they come in there.
And even in the Bible, he says, Karla, you will know, he says he's not even in the midst of the confusion. So don't even get it twisted. I'm going to step outside of it because I'm not in the middle of it. So, and the other thing I thought about, just add this in there. I hope I didn't make you use your train of thought. But when he said in the scripture that he has given us the ability to choose. So he has given us, he has laid out how things should be now, even today, not just 1,000, 2,000 years ago, but now today, we have the choice we have the option of making a choice. We can choose racism. We're given option. The reason why we're doing because we're giving people an option to choose. And I love that scripture, because God says when he tells us to choose life or death, once the facts are there, you have the option of choosing life or death. But he didn't just leave it there. He says you have the option of choosing life and death. And then he says, choose life.
Right.
Got to add that little addendum on in case he has arson and an apple, and we might choose the arson. So he said, choose the arson, choose the apple, choose life. So I just wanted to add that part in there. I'm sorry. Hey everybody, thanks for joining me today on Manna from Heaven. I hope you are enjoying this series discussions on Black people working together with each other in community, and the stereotypes that need to be dismissed and admonished. I hope the food feeds your soul. If you love this series, you can watch it again and again on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, Divinely Designed Women of Wisdom, DDWW, Divinely Designed Women of Wisdom. Here you will find and enjoy all of my broadcasts and podcasts. While checking out my channel, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. See you next week. Don't forget, subscribe, like, and share. Thank you for joining me. See you again next week. Bye.